Good afternoon. Today is November 13th and we are heading into week 5. A couple of notes about this last week that I wanted to draw your attention to. The collaborative assignments were really good. One group did their assignment on parental involvement. The other group covered the area of student motivation. Both of these are really strong topics, and I think they are of interest to all teachers. So make sure, if you haven't already, take a look at your other group's work, and you might want to use it for future use to supplement some of your own information, or to use as staff developments should you be asked to do something like that for your own staff. They looked very professional. They had good resources, a selection of resources, and they were correctly and thoroughly cited. So nice work on that. I appreciated those of you that had to submit those for me. There was an issue on Blackboard, and I'm glad that we were able to resolve that with that simple plan. The other thing that occurred last week was the library orientation. I did log on, and I noticed that there were 3 or 4 of you that were not able to attend that orientation. If you had already contacted me, I sent out an email with the dates. There will be some makeup sessions this week on Tuesday, 11/15 at 5 o'clock. These are all at 5 o'clock. Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday at 5 o'clock. You can log on with the same information. And then there are 2 more. One of them is on November 28th at 7 p.m. The last one is 12/12 at 7 p.m. and that's going to be a little late for you to make that assignment in a timely manner. So I would encourage you to choose one of the 3 days this week. Again, it's Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday this week at 5 p.m. If you have any other questions, let me know. I'll send you the link again if you need it. Okay, so for this week's discussion board, this is what you're asked to respond to. Start with a brief explanation or description of the differences between educational aims, goals, and objectives. Then branch into how each is considered during curriculum planning, either for you personally or for your department as a whole, depending on which approach you want to take. From here, you're asked to articulate any thoughts in regards to how the backward design model supports the task of considering educational goals, aims, and objectives. Just for a little background for you, Peter Hebwich, who wrote the last text we used for this class, Designing the School Curriculum, defines these as follows. He says, aims are your broad topics, not specific enough to direct instruction, but a general outline. He defines goals as the intermediate level of specificity. And lastly, objectives are your most precise and instructionally sensitive targets in your curriculum, the ones that you teach to. In Chapter 7 of your text, on pages 204 through 215, you'll find these 3 terms addressed with an overview table on 215 to help you construct your response this week. A couple of things to think about that struck me as I read these chapters in the past. On page 204 of Chapter 7 is the quote that schools continually modify their curricula, but instructional practice seems to change little. This really resonates with me because this is my job, supporting and helping teachers to change their instructional practice. So I would like you to think about how you might change how, what, or why you do something as you look at this unit of study coming up that you're going to be writing. Also on page 206 was a quote from Noddings, who says that he opines, today in education we really do not frequently query ourselves as to why we're doing what we're doing. Why are we striving for certain things? For those of you that have heard of Simon Sinek's Start With Why, his TED Talk, Start With Why, or his work on the Golden Circle, this ties into that idea that people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And why you do simply proves what you believe. So I think that that's very applicable to the why, how, and what we teach. So just a couple of things to think about as you're reading through Chapter 7 and fashioning your response for discussion board this week. Let's talk a little bit about the backwards design article that's posted. It's a rather lengthy article. It's a part of McTighe and Wiggins' work. So this comes directly from the authors that wrote Understanding by Design, or UBD. Our course is calling it Backwards Design, but it's also known as UBD. And on that article, I think you don't really need to read further than page 18 because it gets into some other pieces that they've built into their lesson plan and into their process that we're not going to be touching on. It talks about things like facets of understanding, and you're not being asked to do those things for this unit of study, so you really don't need to read further than that. Be sure to look at the examples that are given in the article. I want you to have a really clear idea of what they're asking for. The examples in here obviously are the author's own work, so it gives you a really good idea about what essential questions are, what enduring understandings are, and how it relates to the backwards design. So this article plus the pages 196 and 197 are resources that will help you meet the criteria on the rubric for your end product. Let's review a little bit about essential questions. About half of you had submitted them as of yesterday afternoon, and I gave feedback on Blackboard. It's in that, the way I see it, it's in a drop-down menu. So I hope you're looking at that feedback. If you're not or you can't find it, please let me know right away because that's where I'm responding to you. A couple of you, I put zeros in that space because you weren't done yet. I wanted you to take my feedback and refashion your questions a little bit, make them a little more broad and enduring. Remember that an enduring understanding and an essential question are arguable. These are not questions that can be answered with a yes or no. They're not questions that can be answered by finding information in the textbook. There is information in the textbook that can be used to direct them towards an answer, but you're not going to see a direct link. It's not going to ask you a question that's right there in the text. So while I'm asking some of you to change some of those questions into broader questions, you can still use those same questions in your Stage 3 learning plan. Those are still questions that can be asked. They're still things you want your students to know and understand, but they can be done within the context of your learning plan. So then once those specific questions are asked that relate to a very specific topic, for instance, something like the causes of a war, a particular war, an enduring understanding is going to ask broader questions about what are the causes of war. If you're studying a particular time frame and you're looking at a particular war and causes, that is still going to be taught. Students are still going to understand that, but then they're going to broaden their viewpoint into thinking about how this could be generalized into a larger, more broad topic. And when you think about that, whether you're teaching the Revolutionary War in the 5th grade or you're teaching other things in high school, AP classes, whatever, we still talk about why these things occur in our world today. So that's why they're called essential questions. They go beyond just the time frame and the topic of the subject matter that you teach. One of the things that I noticed the last time I taught this class is that the students changed their essential question based upon the lesson plan that they were designing. Don't do that. You only have to write one set of essential questions. All the lessons that you're going to design are going to be about those essential questions. So you can have other questions that are more specific. For instance, specific questions about a particular war and the reasons or the causes and effects of that particular point in time. But your overall essential questions and your enduring understandings will stay overarching throughout your entire unit. So I hope that that's clear. That was an issue that we had with the group last time. All right. If you have questions about that, please send me an email. If I gave you a 0 on this week's assignment that you've already submitted, I also said on your feedback that I will give you some time to make those changes and resubmit. I'm not going to penalize you for that. And the reason is when you have really strong essential questions, they drive your unit much deeper. So I really want you to have good, strong questions. All right. So there's no work due on the plan in week 5. However, I would strongly suggest that you begin to form your performance tasks for the week that is labeled stage 2. And your performance task is going to be 1 or 2 summative assignments, summative assessments, not assignments, but assessments that your students will do. And again, this can be one overarching ending summative assessment. You will have other formative assessments that occur throughout your unit, and those will also be listed. But start thinking about how you want to construct a summative assessment that will enable your students to be able to answer your essential questions after you have taught your unit. All right. I don't think there's a whole lot more I want to say about this, although as you're thinking about that summative assessment, be thinking about technology, how you can infuse that in your summative assessment. Be thinking about how you might differentiate your final assessment for some of your students with different needs. All right, all of that being said, I think that is all that I need to tell you about this weekend. If you have other questions or concerns, please email me. I'm always available to take your phone call, so feel free to do that as well. And I hope that my feedback has been clear. Those of you that have written some really stellar essential questions got really strong feedback about this is exactly where you need to be going, so that was really clear. But if you're still struggling, email me or call me and we'll talk about it. Okay, have a great week. One more week before Thanksgiving, so I know everybody will be looking forward to that. So have a great one, and I'll talk to you next week. Bye.